What's up, everyone? Grayson the Dean 221 Nichols here as always on the Elite Rounders YouTube channel. And it looks like the poker gods once again listened to our wishes. And as of yesterday, we got a new series running on Poker After Dark called the Nosebleeds, where we have some very familiar faces, including the one and only Daniel Negreanu. We got Matt Berkey, Dan Smith, just some great high stakes players. We've got this new guy, MJ Gonzalez, who was one of Daniel's coaches in the Heads Up Challenge, who's a well known high stakes player as well. So, oh, and also we have Scott Seaver, one of the just best players in the world, probably one of the toughest players I've ever played against. And yeah, just a really cool lineup. Got a 200, 400 no limit cash game running right now. I'll be honest, the first episode wasn't as good as I had hoped. I saw the ad and I was thinking, oh, we gotta, this is high stakes poker all over again. I'm excited to see some of these type hands. First episode was somewhat tame, to be honest. They didn't really get too out of line, but there was this one pretty interesting hand with Daniel and Berkey that I wanted to pop on here, just do a quick video and talk about with you guys really fast. Before I do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe button so you can see all of the videos that I put out in the future. Also, definitely make sure to sign up at Poker Go. Like they're just putting out some good content lately. A lot of, you get the heads up challenges every once in a while. A lot of good throwback episodes. And the new Poker After Dark and the new High Stakes Poker episodes have been really enjoyable. And it's just been a good part of my routine, watching the new episode every week that they're putting out. So definitely recommend you guys get on there. And, when you're watching, you can come in and post in the comments and ask me what I think about some of these hands because I'm watching all this stuff too. So let's hop into the hand though. I thought this one was pretty interesting. So again, the action's 200, 400. Daniel opens on the button to 1,000 with 10-6 suited. Berkey calls with Queen 10 off in the small blind, and Dan also completes in the big blind with 8-3 suited. I think this is pretty standard from everyone. Definitely think it's a spot where Berkey could 3-bet pre-flop if he wants, but I mean, looking at what Daniel has, the call makes a ton of sense. His hand is good enough to realize its value and equity post-flop, essentially, and he is dominating some of the stuff Daniel opens. So definitely cool with this open. Flop comes 9 high, 9-8-2 rainbow. Daniel gets a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw, and Berkey has a couple overs and a gut shot as well. So right when I saw this flop, I was like, oh shit, this is a spot where Berkey is going to check raise for sure. And Daniel's not going to be able to fold. So, I knew right off the bat the fireworks were going to be going. So sure enough, Berkey checks. Daniel c-bets 2,000 or so, about 2,200, I believe, into a 3,400 pot. I think that's fine. I don't mind that he went a bit bigger here. I think he'll get check raised a little bit less when he goes that sizing. But I also think if he's planning on calling the check raise, it's a spot where he could easily go, with closer to a 35% bet on this flop, knowing that he is going to peel that check raise. But either way, he bets 2,200. Matt does indeed check raise to 6,500, kind of like we postulated. And sure enough, Daniel again calls. Also take note that Daniel's got just under 100 grand and Berkey has just a little over 50 when they started the hand. So Berkey again, check raise to 6,500. Daniel makes the call. Turns the 5 of spades, just like an awesome card for Daniel, obviously. And it's funny, right as this hand happened, I immediately had a flashback to one of the hands in the heads up bout with Daniel and Phil. I believe there was a spot where Daniel turned a huge draw, like a straight and a flush draw, and Phil was just barreling as a bluff, right? And I think Daniel calls, hits a pair, and then Phil bluffed all in on the river, and Daniel folded. So I was kind of thinking to myself, like right after Berkey bet this 10 grand, leaving himself 37 back, I was like, I wonder if this is a spot where Daniel's also going to remember this moment and like maybe he's not going to make the same mistake twice, right? So I was thinking, oh wow, like maybe Daniel just rips it here. Thinking about, having visions of what happened last time, especially knowing that it's very likely that Berkey has some hands that he's barreling in his range here. Like check raising on this board, there's a lot of semi bluffs, from Jack 10, Queen 10, Queen Jack suited. 7-10. There's a lot of stuff that I think 7-10 suited rather that Berkey would call pre, check raise on this flop as a semi bluff. So honestly, if Daniel just wanted to jam all in right here, I think it makes a ton of sense. There's a lot of money in the pot already, and even if we're wrong, and Berkey did have like a set and he calls, Daniel still has a lot of equity, right? He's still going to get there almost like a third of the time, as crazy as it sounds. So I think that I kind of wouldn't hate just jamming here in Daniel's shoes. Again, high stakes cash, not an area I'm familiar with, nor do I have any authority on this. But I just immediately had that vision where I went back to the hand that Daniel played against Phil and how he probably should have jammed there. So something tells me Daniel was thinking about that as well when this happened, but he does end up calling in this spot. And we get a pretty crazy river where it's the ace of hearts, just the total brick essentially for both of them. However, it's a dynamic card. Berkey thinks about it for about 15, 20 seconds and then checks. And Daniel goes ahead and plays a little bit of power poker and puts Berkey all in for the 37K he's got left. Berkey then laughs to himself and says, well, I guess it stinks that I have a spade here, right? And what Berkey's saying by that is that this queen of spades is a really big blocker towards all the stuff that he needs Daniel to have. Like if Daniel is bluffing here, his possible bluffs look like 10-7 suited, Jack 10, Queen 10, Queen Jack of spades type stuff. Like that's what his bluffing range looks like right here. So Berkey's blocking a lot of that. He's blocking the hell out of it with the Queen of Spades, which blocks some spade combos, blocks the Queen Jack, blocks the Queen 10, and then he has the 10, which is again blocking the Jack 10 and the Queen 10 as well. So it's like Berkey has all of the cards that he needs Daniel to have for Daniel to be bluffing here, right? So Berkey mentioned really fast, he's like, oh, I thought I'd call with Queen High. I could see the temptation. I doubt he really thought about it though, because he was blocking everything so severely. And Daniel made a good bluff. I think it's an interesting one. The question is, should Berkey bet the river? What is he aiming to fold out? The thing I always say to my students is there's two things you got to do when you bluff. A, rep a credible range. And most importantly, B, know what you're trying to make your opponent fold, right? And if Berkey thought Daniel was just being sticky with like a 9-10, Queen 9, King 9 type hand, I think he might try to barrel this river, right? But I'm guessing he assumed that Daniel would fold a lot of those hands for a 10K bet on the turn. So I am kind of curious what Berkey put Daniel on in the spot, because it is kind of like a tenuous board. Like it's not the type of board where there's a ton of strong hands for Daniel to have. Yeah, I guess he could have gotten there with ace 9. I doubt ace 2 or ace 8 are going to call the 10K bet on the turn. So I just don't see a lot of universes where the ace hits Daniel very often, right? So this is an interesting one. I'm definitely going to discuss this with some of my buddies, see what they think, if Berkey should have barreled this river. I think Berkey's a really tough player, and he is one to barrel in some tough spots for sure. So, it's definitely a difficult one. I could see you going either way here, but I think I can understand the give up, and I love the bluff by Daniel. We often talk about being at the bottom of your range in certain spots and how that makes you a little bit more inclined to bluff, and I think that makes a ton of sense, especially in this situation. Daniel also knows that Berkey can have a lot of hands like Jack 10, Queen 10, Queen Jack also. So on that note, I think there's a chance that Daniel could bluff less here, actually. I think it wouldn't be a terrible idea to maybe go for a value bet bluff. He could bet something like 17K, and it probably accomplishes the same thing. Like, I think Berkey's fold, if Berkey somehow did hit an ace, he's calling whether it's all in or 17K, right? If Berkey had 9-10, Jack 9, Queen 9, I'm not sure if you take this line, right? So I don't think Daniel's is worried about that either. So the fact that Berkey has a lot of, misdraws that Daniel's behind means he could actually value bet bluff here. I use this example a lot with students where you raise with 6-7 suited, flop comes Jack 10, 2 of your suit. You bet every time, and then you get to the river and it just went like red 5, red 5. Do you want to bluff your opponent there? Usually I don't like bluffing when all the draws miss, because I think it's kind of obvious and people like hero call you more, right? However, I do think if it's targeting a particular range, it makes a lot of sense. Like in that 6-7 suited example I just gave, I kind of like a 35-40% bluff on the river trying to fold out ace high missed flushes, king high missed straight draws, stuff like that. Like we know we're not making a jack fold. Hell, we're not making a 10 fold, right? But that's not what we're trying to fold. It's a targeted bet and making something like a missed draw that's beating our 7 high fold, right? So definitely love Daniel's bluff here. I think he might have been able to do a smaller bluff though, because I don't think he's making Berkey fold a ton of, he's not folding any top pair, maybe even not a 9, but he will fold a lot of draws that are still beating Daniel. So Cool hand. Really wanted to chat about this one with you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. It's awesome seeing Daniel back on the high stakes grind. So excited to watch this show again. It's every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Poker Go. So definitely check it out. And I'll be putting out a video every Tuesday covering the most interesting hand from the episode. So we can just kind of go over and talk about the fun stuff. But hope you guys enjoyed this. Definitely check out the last video on the Heads Up Challenge, and best of luck this week. I'll see y'all next time.